For this DIY, I've had a request from a student. They're looking for a desk, something cool, funky, which fits in with their environment, but also is cost effective too. I've decided to make this DIY trestle table desk, and I've made use of one sheet of 21mm plywood. We've kept that natural look so you can see all the grain and the layers of the plywood, whilst on the top we've covered it with a white stain wood sealer. So all in all, this is a cost-effective DIY which is ideal for students. Here's all the tools and materials that I'm using to make this DIY project. The first thing you need is 21mm plywood. Now I've taken my cutting list down to builders and they've cut all the sizes for me exactly according to my list. That way all I have to do is put the pieces together and I have my DIY project. As easy as that. Then moving on to the tools, I have a cordless drill, a sander, some screws, a tape measure, I have a screw pilot, some sanding discs, pencil, 10mm drill bit, a range of clamps, a utility knife, some coarse rope, some wood glue and a paintbrush, and some hinges. Some clear wood sealer and some white wood stain sealer. Now this is our desk surface. Now as you can see, one sheet of plywood is a little bit thin, so we're making use of these additional pieces all the way around the perimeter just to double the thickness and beef it up and make it look a lot stronger and a bit more chunkier. Now you can use a full sheet and glue those two together and screw them as well, or you can make use of thinner pieces like this, and that way I'm actually saving material. Right, I'm going to put the first slat on the back edge. I'm going to put some glue in between the mating surface, and I'm also going to make sure I run glue right up to the edge to make sure that I get that glue squeezing all the way out between those two surfaces to ensure that I get a good join between those two pieces. I'm going to be using some clamps to clamp it into position, and at the same time I'm going to put some screws all the way through, which is going to hold it in place once I take the clamps off. That's my one slat complete. I'm now going to take off all those clamps, wipe off the excess glue, and then start off with the next slat and then move my way all the way around the edge of this tabletop. Now that extra slat that I'm putting around the edge of this table is not just for cosmetics and for aesthetics, it's actually for strength as well to prevent this from bowing. And it's going to keep this tabletop rigid and firm. I now need to make my A-frame trestles. So what I can normally do is actually make them on my bench as normal, making use of the square edge. But you'll notice this tabletop is square. I've put these pieces in and I have this perfect square stopper on my table. So I'm actually going to use this underside of my table as my jig for making my trestles. Now on my trestle I've got two sides, two symmetrical sides, two legs down the side with a brace on the bottom and a brace on the top, and then a mirror image on the other side held together with some hinges. So here are my long legs. Put those into position. Now it just so happens that my table is perfect sizing, so I'm going to make use of this square edge of the table. My top brace is on top and my other piece at the bottom. Now you can choose whatever sort of height you want your cross base. I like to avoid using tape measures because that's when I 9 times out of 10 make a mistake. So what I am going to use is a standard spacer. I've got to make each one of these pieces, I've got to make a total of 4, all exactly the same. So I'll use just 2 pieces. Each one of these is 70mm wide. So if I line it up to the end there, and to the end here, put 2 of them together, I've got a space of 140. And that's the perfect height for my leg. And then that's where the position of my leg that I want it in. I've got it flush on the bottom, therefore it's definitely going to be square. Obviously I'm going to put some wood glue in between those mating surfaces. I'm just going to put the clamp on and then I'm going to screw them into place. I've got that all locked down into position and I'm going to put some screws in here, but I'm actually going to countersink them down. So first of all, I'm going to drill a pilot hole and then make use of the screw pilot, which drills a pilot hole and countersinks that hole at the same time for me. There's my first side of the trestle made. All I need to do now is make a hole which is going to take the rope, which I'm going to put through to join the 2 trestles at the bottom so they don't open up too far. And I'm going to use a 10mm drill bit. I'm going to put a piece of wood underneath just so I don't get too much breakout of the bottom piece of timber. One side complete, I've got 3 more to do exactly the same process. Because you're using the underside of the table as a fixed jig, each one of the trestle legs will be exactly the same. My trestle legs are complete. I now need to actually join the 2 together. So let's put that down in position. Bring the other one in, butt it right up to the edge. So I'm going to put my hinges on the inside joining edge there. Line up into position and let's make use of these back flap hinges. Screw it into position and away you go. Right, there's my first trestle. Now obviously if we made the holes earlier, we're going to put a piece of rope across. I'm going to cut a piece off from this coarse rope about 500 mils long, and I'm going to tie a knot on each end, and that should stop the legs from opening up. A handy hint when you are cutting rope is to avoid that from fraying at the ends. Actually put some tape around there, and then you cut through the tape. There you have it. That's my first trestle complete. I'm going to do exactly the same for the other one. Once those are done, I'm going to sand this down because I want to seal this timber with a clear sealer, and on the outer edges I'm going to use a white sealer. Now I've done one beforehand just so you can see briefly what it looks like. I've sealed the edges of the timber with a clear wood sealer, and on the outer surfaces I've actually made use of a white wood stain sealer. That way it actually still allows the contour of the grains to come through and shine through, and it gives that wood that little bit of extra character. Now when you are going to be sanding the top face of your desktop, it can have some quite rough surfaces, so make use of a 60 grit sandpaper on your sanding machine just to get that smooth surface, and then you can finish off with either a 80 or a 120 grit to get a smooth surface. As you can see, that second piece of timber that we added to the tabletop really gives it a good chunky look and a strong feel. You are going to need to sand that edge there just to get rid of any misalignment between those two surfaces. Then you're going to seal it again with the clear on the sides and the white wood sealer on the top surface. There you have it, this DIY is complete, and I really like how this white wood stain has allowed the knots and the grain texture to actually come through and give this tabletop some great character. All I have to do now is go and put into situ, and hopefully I have a happy customer. Remember, if you like this DIY or you found it interesting, like it, share it. You can also subscribe to our channel and get notifications of similar DIYs just like this.